Welcome back everyone, Zaf here. I have unfortunate news for those of you who already have perfect traits, and I have great news for everyone else who doesn't. The trait meta has changed, and honestly speaking, I love that we can finally change our build. I can say with certainty that Gent is no longer the best slime, but if he isn't the best, then who has taken his place at the top? Well, let's outline what you need to do for more damage, and I'll explain why these changes have occurred. Hopefully I made this video just in time for those of you who are still rerolling traits, since you better stop and listen before you waste any more trait points. Also, if you're still struggling to get Love Cat, feel free to comment your invite codes here. Let's be supportive of each other and use the posted codes. If you are subscribed, I'll pin your comment to help you get your codes used quicker. And definitely be sure to join our Discord server to post your codes there as well. We are almost at 10,000 members, so come join in on the fun. Now to explain why the trait meta has changed, let's go to our slime stats. If you look carefully, with our balanced loadout using Gent, ideally we have companion damage, skill damage, and boss damage all about even, but with Gent, we probably could get away with a higher companion damage and boss damage amount, since Gent's skill damage isn't too crazy, but in the most recent update, they did buff it from 30% to 2500%. Regardless, this is the kind of balance you should be using for most SS rank slimes, with a slight exception again for Gent. If you are using free-to-play slimes, you probably want either skill damage or companion damage. This is just going to be based on where you are in the game right now. Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with how good talismans are. Because of the Talisman of Sharpness, we have gotten an absolute ton of skill damage. 1600% at level 17 from the Legendary Talisman, 400% from a level 100 Epic Talisman, and minor gains from the other rarities. But earlier you did see that our skill damage is just as even as our other damage multipliers. So what gives? Well, it turns out when you change your traits, yes, that means from the SS attack trait meta that we've had before to skill damage traits, we get so much more damage because our skill damage gets multiplied, meaning we get a very large boost. So any slimes that deal a majority of skill damage will suffer from success. I saw this chart posted by our amazing member Blackfire in the past. I wouldn't use this as a reference for which slime is best, but basically what this chart does show us is that changing your traits, the ratios are present at the bottom, the first number representing attack and the second being skill damage. So a 4:1 ratio is 4 attack traits and 1 skill damage trait, meaning applying these changes will result in slimes dealing more damage than Gent, which is a very big deal. This does take into consideration talismans, so a legendary talisman is what you need to start seeing major leaps in damage from this, and the point where we get the most amount of returns to our damage when changing traits is at the 3:2 ratio, so 3 attack traits and 2 skill damage traits. Now, of course, we will have to adjust our build a bit, but I'll save that for another video. In this video, I'm going to change my traits and show you the effects this has, just so you can understand it and not waste your time changing your traits, only to find out the damage bonus wasn't ideal. Now, before we start rerolling traits, it would be foolish for me not to do a benchmark of our current damage. To do this, I'll be using Gent, Miner, and Moonrabbit. Gent for obvious reasons, as he is currently the best slime with our previous best build. Moonrabbit will be used just to display a general slime that deals a good amount of skill damage, and I'll also be using Miner because at this point in time, he has the greatest amount of potential for any other slime that we currently have, and I'll explain why in just a second. Since I don't have a Gent toy, I will be doing our testing using this Ignis toy and doing some swapping between toys. Since I do have a Miner toy, we can just use that for Miner, where everything else does make sense, so don't worry, you'll see in a second. Gent does not need his own toy, since the skill damage influence won't really amount to much. Anyways, starting things off with Gent, using our regular build that we've always had equipped with the Ignis toy, he left the stage boss at 390 AJ health. That's what we should expect from our best result, since again, Gent is our best performer currently. Next up we have Miner. I'm going to put the Ignis toy on him and send him off to a stage boss battle. A lot of you will be surprised that Miner is actually performing not too bad, considering he doesn't have his slime toy equipped. I'll show a round with his toy shortly, just so we get a good sense of his real potential damage output. But with this run, we left the stage boss at 1.12 AK health. Now what I want to do next is see the influence Miner's toy will have on his skill damage, but we can't just simply go ahead and equip Miner's toy, since as you can see, the attack gets doubled at the top when you match up a toy with the slime in question. So to combat this boost, we will leave Ignis's exotic toy unequipped. We're doing this so we get the same bonus as if we had 2 exotic toys equipped as we did for Gent. The only difference here being Miner will get the extra amount of damage for slime skill, but he will be missing that extra boss damage amount since our Miner toy is not perfect, but honestly that isn't a big deal. It is only going to be marginal, about a 10% damage influence most likely. What we really want is that 300% skill damage bonus, so we can watch and see how good Miner can actually be with his full potential. Now this time around, jumping into a stage boss battle, we can definitely see that Miner's skill is taking out chunks from the boss's HP. The influence that we get from the 300% toy skill damage bonus is honestly quite massive. Again, remember that previously Gent had brought the stage boss to 390 AJ health remaining, and without any optimizations to our build, strictly using Miner's slime toy and applying no other changes, Miner was able to come extremely close to Gent's performance, bringing the stage boss to 564 AJ health remaining, which is basically within a few percent of Gent's performance. And I am telling you, once we do update our traits, things are going to get absolutely crazy. Before I do forget, I also jumped into a stage boss battle using Moonrabbit. They were able to bring the stage boss to 1.15 AK health, so basically around the same as Miner's initial performance. Miner does have an edge, and that's because he has access to the astrology node, where he does get a boost to slime skill damage. I believe he is actually the only SS slime to get that bonus, which is what makes his potential so much higher than the rest. Now with all this said, we have to do the most unfortunate thing. I can't tell you how much this pains me to do, but our traits do need to be reset again. Thankfully, only 2 traits need to be changed. I'll be removing our last 2 traits, since we can replace our purple attack trait with either a blue or purple skill damage trait, and our orange attack trait with another orange skill damage trait. We will be re-rolling both of them at the same time, just so the cost is cheaper, so let's dive right into it. And obviously, don't worry, I won't be making you sit through the re-rolling process, but can I just tell you that this took me 2 hours to complete. Yes, 2 full hours of re-rolling, and I didn't even get the right traits. The end of the re-rolling process, I only ended up with a single blue skill damage SS trait. At that point, I just said I'm done with it and settled with the blue trait, and after a few more moments, I did end up with a second blue skill damage trait. I didn't get a single purple or orange skill damage trait. I think I got around 7 or 8 blues, which was super disappointing to say the least. Now let me remind you of how much skill damage we had initially before changing our traits. Again, we had around the 4,000s range of skill damage, but looking at how much skill damage we have now, just from changing 2 traits, we went from 4,000% in skill damage to over 10,000%. You better believe this is going to translate into a crazy amount of damage for us, so there's no point in making you wait any longer. Without doing any other changes, no build changes, no other adjustments, we're just going to jump into a stage boss battle using an unoptimized build. Again, I want to reiterate, the only change we've made is to our traits, and you'll see just how much stronger we've gotten. Yup, it's clear as day that Miner's skill damage is extremely buff now. This sets the new meta in full motion. Gent has officially been dethroned. Miner is absolutely blitzing through these stage bosses right now. It's going to be extremely strange switching over to Miner going forward. forward, it looks like I'll need to make a new toy for him to ensure we get every bit of damage drained out of him. So for everyone out there that's currently working on their traits, I think it's safe to say that if you get a skill damage trait, it won't hurt at all to keep it. This will likely be the case even if you are a free-to-play player, since eventually you will unlock the legendary talisman. It's not too hard to get it as a free-to-play player. That way you'll get the scaling to your skill damage from traits, allowing you to deal so much more damage. And for those of you who are wondering where we ended up in stages, we got to the 9-4 mark at the end of the day. Miner really did come in clutch. Now with these traits, Gent is pretty much useless, so we probably won't be seeing him very often, and because of these changes, I will have to do an updated build guide video. This includes a toy guide as well since things have changed, so subscribe, like, and comment if you want to see those videos. That way I know you want to see more Legend of Slime content like this. Zaf, signing out.